Thank you so much. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to this conference hacks. So this conference hack is kind of collaborations between Innovations Diffusion Lab at College of Media and Communications and COMC Graduate Student Society. We are happy to announce like we have two amazing speaker or panelists today. Dr. Austin Lee, Assistant Professor of JCMI Journalism and Creative Media Industry, as well as Dr. Justin Keene, Assistant Professor, Associate Professor of JCMI, as well as Director of CCR. He's also Interim Assistant Dean for Research at College of Media and Communications. So we have divided this part kind of Dr. Austin Lee will start first, maybe a little presentations. I think I can see Dr. Keene is really very happy. So maybe 12 to 15 minutes, then we'll go with Dr. Keene. Then we'll open this floor for the audiences if there are any questions and all other things. I think this is kind of little bit free discussions as I can say from my experiences.
কনফারেন্সটা আমি জয়েন করছি তো
As I can say from my experiences that we have so many struggle how to navigate, how to do the things, especially in communications. There are conferences like NCA, AGMC, ICA. They are pretty big, and sometimes, not sometimes actually, most of the times we get lost how to do things. So I really appreciate Dr. Lee and Dr. Keene for giving their kind permissions to talk with the things with us. So we are not taking much longer time. With that, I would invite Dr. Lee for his presentations. Or Dr. Lee, you can share your screen if you want, or I can also
Okay.
share my screen if you want.
I'd like to share mine so that I can go on my
Okay,
own page.
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'd like to thank you, give special thanks to the Dr. Key and Mahidi for organizing this. So yeah, my first conference was NCA in 2007 in Chicago. It was freezing cold, and I was just overwhelmed. I didn't know how to navigate the conference, and no one told me what to do. So I was thinking like, man, I wish someone told me what to do and how to navigate the conference. And now we have this session, so I'm happy to share my tips and tricks on how to navigate in conference as a graduate student. So my first point to emphasize is attend conference whenever possible. You have to attend conferences. Don't worry about logistics and flight and hotels and registration. Well, you will figure out the ways. Okay, there are some supporting systems from the college. So, well, what is more important is you have to go there and attend because, well, I'm a deadline-driven person. And I know you are as well. And journal publications, you submit paper whenever you want, unless it is a special issue. So there is no pressure of deadline. But as a graduate student, you guys have to juggle with many things around you. And well, you sometimes need deadlines. And NCA and ICA and AJMC have hard, fast deadlines. You have to meet that deadline. Otherwise, you have to wait for the next one. So it is a good motivator, okay? So deadline can drive you. At the same time, you can get tons of research inspiration. The most productive moment of my life is when I'm coming back from the conference on the plane, and I pull out my notepad and write out the things I learned from the conference and research ideas. You can generate so many cool research ideas in that way. So that's another reason. But the foremost reason is for networking. Yeah, you can learn about other things by reading journals, all right? You don't have to go to conference, but you can't replace this experience with other things. You have to go there and attend and network. In my opinion, sessions are overrated, right? Yeah, you can learn things from reading journals, but networking is the thing you can have only at conferences. So this is tip for all attendees. You have to go to graduate receptions. So many PhD programs, large PhD programs have their own receptions. And I'm specially listing those three programs, USC, UPenn, the Annenberg School, right, from the West, from the East, and Nanyang Tech. And guess why? Because they have the best food. That's it. I'm not implying that you have to go to those conferences, but you have to go there for food. So you don't really have to go out and eat dinner when they have graduate program reception. There will be food. Okay. And why? Well, if there is a food, there will be people coming. So they are good venues for meeting new people at the conferences. That's why I'm emphasizing. And I said, paper sessions are overrated. So going to the poster session, well, NCA calls it scholar to scholar session is great because, if you're in a session, you're just one of the attendees in the large, conference room, and that's it. You don't have an opportunity to, connect with the speaker. But in scholar to scholar sessions, you can actually talk to the person and one-on-one, and you can also exchange visit cards, etc. So this is a great opportunity for networking. And also, this is really important. You will have to go to business meetings. So depending on your in the field of research, could be personal, could be technology, could be organizational, right? You will have a home division or inners group. The inners group are newer and smaller than division, but you will find a home at NCA or ICA, JMC, and you have to know the things that are going on in those interest groups or business divisions, okay, and figure out what kind of special issues they're looking for, what kind of service opportunities are available, and what was the acceptance rate for their division, etc. You can't find information outside a business meeting like this. So you have to attend business meetings. If you're presenting a paper, congratulations, and you have to rehearse in advance. The very common mistake by graduate student is, well, they may have 10 to 12 minutes, usually 12 minutes if there is no respondent, or 10 minutes if there's a respondent giving you feedback at the end of the presentation. So you have only 10 minutes, so you have to time it wisely. And many graduate students spend like 8 minutes presenting the literature review part. And they run out of time, and the chair gives you the sign, you have 2 minutes, and they start panic, and then they rush through the most important result and discussion section like that. Remember, attendees are there not to learn about literature review, but to learn about your finding, your key takeaways. Okay, so please time it wisely. In terms of presentation, less is better in many cases. And another thing to remember is, well, if you're presenting, make sure to send your slide to the session chair so that he or she can put it up on their own laptops. Yeah, you don't want to lose like adapters like this, right? Many laptops these days don't have HDMI ports. So, and sometimes you forget to bring these kind of things. So it is a good idea to send the slide to the session chair. And if you have respondents in the session, make sure to send your paper, full paper, to the respondent in advance. If you're presenting poster, congratulations. I think poster is better than paper sessions because you have opportunity to interact with other people. So please prepare your 30-second elevator pitch and also 2-minute longer version of your presentation. And you have to print your poster ahead of time. We don't have a large printer in our building, so you have to go to the engineering building right over there. Okay, and it is always crowded. They have 9 poster printers there, but they're always busy printing blueprints and things like that. So you have to plan ahead, right? And then, well, send it to the architecture department in advance to have it printed. And you can have a tube. Well, it is a good investment for your academic career. Or if you don't want to bring a tube, you can print it out on fabric as well. And this is another tip. Not only you have to bring your poster, but at the same time, bring letter size version. Okay, print the poster on the letter size paper and bring multiple copies of them so that attendees can get a copy if they want. You may wonder, oh, well, it's a research poster. So if I print things out on the letter size paper, everything looks so small, then your design is flawed. Okay, look at this image on the background. You can see that these are the posters, but you have no idea what the posters are about because there are too much information on that. So visualization is important. If you have to provide details, provide QR code for your full paper. You can, share it on your OneDrive or Dropbox, okay, and use a QR code generator so that participants scan it, they have access to the full article. This is especially important because we don't have repository for full articles at NC or IC or agency. And it is a good idea to follow hashtag better poster principles. So what is better poster? It's a movement by a graduate student at Michigan State, and he was so bored and frustrated by research posters we typically have. So what he proposed is, well, people are here for your takeaways. Okay, so emphasize the key takeaways in the middle and provide a little bit of details on each side. That's it. I think this is a little bit radical, right? We still want to communicate details of the experiment, but I like the idea. We have to implement some of the key takeaways from this better poster movement. So these are the examples of my own poster. The left one I presented with Dr. Key. And well, it does contain basic information about our research, but you can say that it's about the sex spot. It's about people's response to sex spots, right? And we can see that we have qualitative approach and quantitative approach, mixed approach, right? So, what is the main message? Yeah, we did the mixed approach on sex spot, right? About people's response. We can easily figure out. On the right side is another paper I presented a couple months ago, and you can see from the key takeaways and the visual images there is about how males and females perceive autonomous vehicles differently. So again, yeah, this is a little bit too radical if you're not comfortable with that, but you still can implement some of the elements in your poster presentation. But again, you have to plan ahead and put lots of effort in design. If you're applying for PhD programs, go to graduate school receptions. And you can, meet with your fellow, students from other programs, and you can have some candid response about what their experience is like. You can read, whatever, coursework they have, requirement they have, who are the professors, etc. But you wanna hear the real voices, then you have to go to graduate school receptions. And also, don't forget to go to grad fair so that you can have potential professors and senior grad students. Yeah, when I was a second year, third year PhD doctoral student, yeah, I was at this booth a lot. Okay, so that I can answer any questions that applicants may have. So you can ask a bunch of questions at grad fair, but some programs offer office hours so that you can meet graduate director. Well, you may want to bring some thoughtful questions. Here's a small announcement. Michigan State will have open office hours at NCA on Saturday. And you may wonder, yeah, how do we get those kind of information? This is submit through the NCA Com notes. So if you're a graduate student, you have to sign up for this newsletter. This is a weekly newsletter. You can have all the announcements regarding our field. So yeah, if you haven't, make sure to subscribe. If you're applying for jobs, I know some of our students here today are applying for jobs. Make sure to go to graduate school reception so that you can meet some search committee chairs and members. And go to job fair. You have to reach out beforehand, right? Job fair shouldn't be the first time you talk to those people. You have to reach out in advance, right? And you have to send a note that, oh, I'm looking forward to meet you guys at the job fair. And then you go to job fair and discussion, right? And make sure to bring your one-page resume. Do not bring a full version of your CV, which can be very thick, right? Have a one-pager version of resume and bring it with you. So be prepared. And in many cases, you can have on-the-spot interviews. So, the search committee chair may invite you to their room, usually like a suite room. So there is an area for the interviews, and you can have on-the-spot interview, which is a little bit awkward and sometimes very nervous. But yeah, this is a good opportunity for job interviews. All right, so I shared the tip for attendees, presenters, and also PhD and job applicants. But these are general tips for networking. So if you're going to sessions, again, sessions are overrated. But if you want to make connections, feel free to approach the presenters, session chairs, and sometimes respondents after the session. And at the receptions, well, you approach fellow graduate students and ask them to introduce you to others. For example, you want to talk to some professors out there, but it feels awkward to approach them, right? What is the best way to do that? Yeah, ask your fellow student to connect them, and they're always happy to help, okay? So please don't be shy. And follow-up is the most important part. You're gonna get lots of business cards, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't follow up. Okay, you have to send emails to everyone. You exchange it in the contact information. And in this short email, highlight some details from your conversation to make them memorable so that next time you meet them, then, well, you have something to talk about, okay? And this is the way you find your potential collaborators. Some final tips. Well, you have to plan ahead. You have to have itinerary for your, conference, okay? So you have to list all the sessions you want to go, receptions you want to go. And at the same time, you have to have some room for, flexibility. And stay calm when things go off track. And you have to dress up professionally, okay? Especially when you're presenting. But at the same time, wear comfortable shoes because you will be standing all day long. And pace yourself, have some break and don't get dehydrated. And this is something I want to emphasize. So be mindful. You have to be able to recognize unwanted approaches, okay? Because, well, the conferences, you are excited, overwhelmed, you meet a bunch of new people, and usually at the reception, alcohol is involved, okay? So stay aware of your surroundings and maintain professional boundaries. If someone oversteps a boundary, then it is completely fine to excuse yourself or just say no, okay? So accidents happen at conferences. I've seen them quite a lot. So try to be safe, okay, and mindful. And yeah, that's it. You guys have fun trip. And if you have any questions, please shoot me an email. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. I think we all have some kind of questions regarding this or any kind of inquiries, but we'll go back to that later. And then now I would like to request Dr. Keene for his talk.
Yeah. So mine's not nearly as I don't have slides. Should have. Dang it, Austin, you showed me up. So my first conference, so Austin's was in 2007, mine was in 2008. It was ICA in Montreal. And I tell people all the time I did it completely wrong. Like I was only there for like a day and a half, which flying internationally for a day and a half is stupid. Don't do that. It was dumb. Um, but there were a couple things that I did correctly that as I look back. So one is I asked a guy named Rob Potter to go to coffee with me. He was the kind of session chair for the session I was presenting in. Rob is now a professor at Ohio State. At that time, he was at Indiana, and I was a master's student actually here at Tech. And I just finished up my first year, so I was wanting to apply to PhD programs, and IU was kind of on my list. And so I approached him, and we went and had coffee right after the session. And then I approached a couple other Missouri folks because that's where I was also interested in, a couple of Michigan State folks. And I ended up being able to have, conversations that are just a lot more comfortable and relaxed than what you might have over at that time what would have been Skype or over email or like cold calling people to ask them about programs. So I do think I did that part right. Over the years, I've made a lot of really stupid mistakes at conferences that I've kind of learned from and had to kind of grow from. And so I'm going to walk you through a few kind of things that I have learned that I try to teach to my students now too. And so so Austin mentioned these receptions, they're parties. Let's be real about it. You walk in, they hand you a ticket, that ticket buys you a drink, you know. My polite advice is go to the parties, but don't party. I have a very strict one drink a night rule. Some of that is because I'm an old lightweight, and some of that is because I've watched my friends make absolute idiots of themselves by getting drunk on Michigan State's dime or somebody else. And so those parties are great. They're awesome networking events. I met three of my closest friends in the world through conferences and through going to receptions and dinners. But just be smart with how you interact with them. Set rules going in, view it as this is a professional interaction in a more comfortable setting, but it still is a professional interaction. So Austin was like, sessions. I kind of agree. Some sessions are real crappy. However, I think you should go to sessions for people that you look up to or that you cite. Hear how they talk about their own work. It's really interesting to read someone's work and then you go hear them talk about it. And sometimes they're very different. And I think that's fascinating. So you should go hear them talk. No one is more flattered, I promise you, than a faculty member whenever you come to them and are like, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm a graduate student here at Texas Tech. And, we read your work in our classes. And I just wanted to thank you for your talk. I have a quick question about, right. And so then you have a question. And so no one is more like, ooh, somebody likes me, like that's always a good thing. So I also started doing a few years ago, my friend Renee Weber, he's now a professor at UC Santa Barbara. He and I were talking about conferences and talking about how it can be really insular with your divisions, particularly like an ICA, right? So my home division at ICA is communication science and biology. I do a little bit in computational communication and a little bit in mass comm and a little bit in health comm, but mostly I'm in CSAB. And so Renee and I were talking about it and we said, hey, what if we just agree that every year that we're at ICA together, we're going to go like literally like, at that point they still printed, the guide book for the conference. And so we were just going to thumb through it blindly and pick a session and go. And so we did that for a few years, starting in like 2016. And so it's actually been kind of lovely to always go to at least one session that is completely outside of my field, right? Like, so I've gone to stuff in like feminist rhetoric and things that are interesting, but they're not at all what I do. So I don't know any of the names. They don't know who the hell I am. Like I'm just some old bald white guy sitting in the back going, I've never heard these words before. And so it's good for you. It's good for you to see the breadth of our field. I think it's good for you to see that there are other ideas out there, because otherwise I think you can get a little bit of academic snobbery and thinking that you're the only correct group, or your thought is the only thought or the only correct thought. So I think that's good. So the job hub is important, I think, when it comes to, I think everybody should go to AJMC the year that you're on the market. It gives you a lot of quick repetitions that are frankly kind of low risk, right? Like you're not going to get a job at AJMC. right? The school that was the most interested in me at AJMC in 2012 didn't even bring me on campus for an interview whenever it came down to brass tacks, right? Like they were super into it and they're like, oh yeah, you're perfect. And then I come back and I'm like, I think I'm going to move to Memphis. And then they didn't even like bring me on campus, right? And so you can't get a job at AJMC, but you can certainly lose a chance at one if you act like an asshole. And so the example I give is actually in the inverse. I learned at my AJMC interview session a school that I did not want to work for. With the AJMC Job Hub, you can upload your materials, right? And then the jobs upload theirs. And so it's kind of like a dating site. And so you can see all the jobs. And so you email them and say, hey, I'm coming. Here's my CV. I would love to meet with you. They set up a time, like Austin said, in one of their conference rooms, and you meet with them. So I think I had like 36 or 37 interviews. Like I was packed full over 3 days. And I had 3 schools that reached out to me directly to interview with them. One of them is the job that I have now here at Texas Tech. And then there were 2 other schools. And one of those other schools is relatively prestigious in our field. And so I won't name them to not be a jerk to them because I like a lot of people that work there. But the person I interviewed with, it was my last interview of the long weekend, right? And I think it was probably his last interview of the long weekend. So we sit down and he goes, so what makes you think you're good enough to work at state school X? And I said, well, I think I'm good enough because you guys asked me to interview with you. So I think if you don't think I'm good enough, I should probably just go to the bar with my friends. And he just kind of looked at me and I was like, yeah, bye. And I left. And I didn't end up applying for that job despite getting multiple emails from them leading up to the application deadline that I should. And I will never work at that school. Actually, I've decided in my career, like, nope. And in fact, I've decided to never send grad students there until a couple of new people came there. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll change my rules. But like it made me mad. It was offensive, frankly. And so you don't get a job there, but you can certainly lose a job there. And as an institution, we can certainly lose a chance at someone if we're jerks there. So I always give an analogy of when I was in grad school, I worked for a particularly interesting advisor at Indiana, shall we say. And so Annie Lang is who I worked for, and Annie's group at every conference kind of walked around behind her. So she would like come leading through a room and all of us would kind of come behind her like penguins, like following, like it'd be just like this string of current and former graduate students. And eventually I kind of looked up one day and I was like, I'm missing out on interacting with people that I don't know. And I'm missing out on interacting with people that don't like Annie, but that I might like. Right. And so I eventually kind of struck out on my own at conferences and kind of just, I still, hang out with her if she's there and all that. But then I made a point to go introduce myself to different people and find my own kind of friend group within the field and get to know graduate students from other schools and, like Austin was talking about, develop collaborations and all of that. And so I give I always call it the penguin versus the tiger. And so like, penguins follow around their advisor everywhere they go and like, oh, well, I guess Justin's not going to a session, so I guess I won't, right? And so I always get on to my students like, no, go find your own thing, like build your own schedule. And the tiger just kind of goes out on their own and does their own thing all the time. And so I think there's probably something in the middle that you can find where your advisor is a great source of relationships that they already have established, that they can introduce you to people. But also, they don't necessarily know all the graduate students. And those graduate students are the people that are going to be on hiring committees, maybe if they're a couple years older than you, right? Whenever you go up, they're going to be the people that you're going to be competing with for grants and, that you're going to be sending graduate students back and forth to each other's labs. And so these are people you need to get to know, right? Like my Russell Clayton at Florida State, Richard Husky at UC Davis, Tino Metz, who's at an institution in Germany, like all of them I met through conferences and they're 3 of my closest friends. And it's because I was just willing to go ask people at posters what they do. And, oh, that looks kind of similar to what I do. You want to go have dinner? And like, let's talk, And so I encourage you to do that. When it comes to what conferences to attend, I think that is, it's tricky because it's really easy for us as faculty that have a fairly healthy travel budget to be like, oh, go to it all. But most of you probably don't know this, but my wife is a doctoral student over in the College of Ed. And so I understand what it's like to be effectively broke, right? At least on her end. At least she has me to, like somewhat offset. And so I get it that you're looking at going, man, I can't afford to go to 5 conferences a year. I can afford to maybe go to 1. Okay. I think you should go to a big one, a big, broad communication one. and I don't care which one you go to. I think that if you're going to only go to one communication one, you should pick between NCA or ICA, depending on your particular discipline and if there's a division that fits best. I think if you're going to go to two communication broad ones, then you might add in AEJMC. Frankly, historically, the science at AEJMC is not quite as great as some of the science that you're going to hear at NCA or ICA. And that's not a knock against AEJMC. It's more of the timing of when those papers are due and when that conference is. You usually end up with people's like half-cocked ideas, not their fully finished ideas. And so the parties are great at AEJMC, I will say that. And the Job Hub is excellent. So it's not like you should just ignore it forever. But if you're going to only pick one, I would really encourage you to find a division and stick in it. And like Austin said, go to the business meetings, go to the stuff, become a known person in that field. I was able to develop pretty much all of my tenure letter writers through going to different things at conferences and getting to know different people. And so, you know, that it's an important part of the networking and the socialization of yourself within the field. And so if you're going to go, let's say you have enough money, or your PI or your doctoral advisor has enough money, and they're like, hey, we want to go to this really special one. So like some of my students come with me sometimes to it's called the Society of Psychophysiological Researchers. And so like it's an awesome conference, super, super fun, but it's very specific. If you're going to go to that, I would suggest you go maybe once or twice during your doctoral time. If you can, go to something that's specific and unique. But realize that by going to a specific, like a methodologically centric one, you're not going to have as many of the people from your broad field who are someday going to be on a hiring committee or be on a tenure review committee and that kind of thing. So it's important and it's cool and you're going to learn a lot, but the socialization factor is going to be a little different. And so Austin mentioned technology. I have strong opinions on this. So I think you should control every factor of your technology every time you go give a talk anywhere. And to that end, you should have all the adapters for your specific laptop to be able to connect to anything in the world. You should bring your own clicker. You should bring your file saved as a PowerPoint file, as a PDF. It should be on your computer. It should be on Dropbox. It should be on a flash drive. You should email it to your session chair, all of it, because you're going to get in there. And sometimes it is easier for the session chair to pull everything up on their laptop. That's fine. I've also gotten there before and the session chair goes, oh, I don't have the adapter for my laptop to hook into the thing. Sorry. And then you're kind of up a creek if you were depending on someone else. And I think this is true, by the way, for job talks. Whenever you're on the market, you should never trust that the school that you're going to has technology that is going to operate the way you need it to. It might not have the fonts you need on there for your talk. It might not have the right size. Don't trust it, right? Like prepare for every possible contingency. If you don't have a laptop, totally understand. You should bring it saved onto like an external drive and have it saved on the cloud and have emailed it to yourself. And, so that no matter what, you're going to be able to get to it. I think it's absolutely like imperative that you try to control the controllables. And that is one thing that you can absolutely be in charge of. And so, like if you're one of the PhD students that got one of the more modern M2 or M3 MacBook Pros last year or this year, they have an HDMI port on the side. They also have a display port. Like roll in with your laptop, make sure you bring a charger, you'll be fine. But just like if you can control the controllables on that, you won't end up in a situation like I have seen people have happen before where they only have it on their laptop. You're in some hotel that the Wi-Fi is dodgy at best, and they don't have another way to get it onto a laptop that can actually present it on the screen. So I've literally seen people hold up their laptop and like talk people through their slides from the front of the room. Nothing makes you feel stupider. It's just ridiculous. To Austin's point about rehearsing, I used to not do that with my students. I used to say like, oh, they'll probably be like me. They can probably hop up there and wing it. And then I had a student like melt down in front of a group of people one time at ICA. And ever since then, if any of my students are going to go be giving the talk portion of one of our research presentations, I make them practice the heck out of it and pepper them with questions and everything, because you need to be comfortable. One, it's your information, right? Like you should be comfortable presenting it to anybody. You don't have to sound smart. I hate when people try to sound smart or when people try to write so that they would sound smart. It's your ideas. You know it best. Translate it in your own language as if you were talking to a friend, right? Other academics are very normal humans. I've only met a couple in my 20+ year career that I was like, wow, you're very strange, right? Like most of us are very normal humans. We just want to hear you talk about your stuff and hear what you're excited about. And so if you can translate it in a way that's comfortable, that's in your normal language, all of that of how you would speak about it, it's going to be fine. I promise. But I do make my students practice. I think you should like always look through your slides and make sure they're going to be readable, like some common stuff like that. I will readily admit that I am one to write my slides on the plane, which is not a great habit. Don't do, again, this is a not do what I do. It's a do what I say kind of workshop. I also have, 100 something conference presentations under my belt. So, a little bit different. Poster wise, Austin mentioned a couple of places on campus. The other place he posted it in the chat, but the place I always print posters is Human Sciences. It's a walk to get over there, but it's $6 a poster and they're never busy. And so, I have had to pay the stupid tax a couple times where I did not have time to go get my poster printed before I flew somewhere, and I've had to print it at like the Kinko's downtown Chicago and paid, $60 for it or something. Don't do that. For poster tubes, you have a few options. I think mine's in my closet, but I bought a 2-pack of cardboard mailer tubes like 5 years ago, and thinking that I would go through like one a year and have to go spend another $15. I still have 2 of them in perfectly great condition. And so, you can do that. There are like plastic ones out there that kind of look like a bazooka, that like they're like a fishing rod kind of case. If you want to go spend money on it, do it. Put your name on it so that if you lose it on a plane or you leave it in a room or something, somebody can find you and get it back to you. But it is a reasonable thing to have. I am not a fan of fabric. Fabric posters, I feel like to me always end up looking frumpy and unclear, and it's really hard to read the text on them. However, if you want to make a quilt, I guess, of your posters after grad school, like you can use the fabric one. They are very expensive and it takes a while to get them printed. And yeah, to Mahi's point, you can carry these things on, right? Like I just carry it with me and I shove it in the overhead compartment when I get on a flight. Like I've flown internationally with them. I've flown all over the US with poster tubes. I've never once been questioned. I've never been pulled to the side and been like, sir, why are you trying to bring this pipe bomb onto this plane or something? Like they're very used to it on that kind of, and if they ask, tell them it's conference materials. I'm an academic. They're going to open it up and be like, what is, why do you have this 4 foot by 3 foot printout with all this text on it? But sure, whatever, roll it up and they'll send you on your way. You'll be fine. My biggest thing with conferences is to enjoy where you get to go. One of the unique privileges of being an academic, there are many privileges to this career path, is that you get to travel to some pretty interesting places to get to tell other people about your work. And so to Austin's point about like, take some time to rest and relax, I always try to take at least half a day, no matter where I am, for a conference and just go explore or do something unique to there. So when ICA was in Puerto Rico back in 2015, I took my doctoral students on a fishing trip. Like I hired a guide and we went fishing for a day. Right. And I was like, hey, we're going to go do this. It's going to be fun together. And like, we still have all these pictures of us going fishing and like getting seasick. I was saying, it was a blast. Right. And when I was in Prague, I was like, hey guys, we're going to go take a half a day and we're going to do this walking tour of the old city in Prague. Because when else are you going to go back to Prague as a grad student? Right. And so, I just think it's worth taking some time to explore, and trying to view it, it's not a vacation, but trying to view it as a chance to kind of reset. I agree with Austin. I am never smarter than whenever I sit down to write out research ideas on the plane back from a conference. I'm never dumber than the flight to a conference when I'm like, what am I doing? Am I even smart enough to talk to these people? Like, why am I doing this? And then I come back and I'm like, oh man, I'm so re-energized and ready to go. The bummer, like full disclosure for me, is timing on a lot of our communication conferences is really poor as a parent. And so I've kind of taken a back seat over the last couple of years for conferences so that my wife can go to more for her field because it's important for her with where she's at in her career path. But I will be at ICA this next year in Denver. And then I'm gonna kind of be back on the horse next year now that she's finishing up. So yeah, I think conferences are they're a necessary evil. And I think you should just, pick a couple, dedicate yourself to going to those for a few years, try to become a known commodity at those. Not as the person that gets really loaded at every party, but as the person that shows up and asks questions and interacts with people from outside of their school and, is willing to do these different things. I've met so many really, really great people because of uh, time that I was able to like go to a conference and meet with somebody at their poster and then go to dinner with them after and become friends and kind of follow each other's careers after that. And so I think it's totally worthwhile. My last bit of one is I hate spending my students' money for them, but I always suggest that you stay at the conference hotel. One, the rates are always going to be better than any other rate you're going to get anywhere close to the conference hotel because those other hotels that did not get the conference are not going to be mad, so they're going to raise their rates. And so you're going to get actually reasonable rates to stay at like the Marriott in downtown Denver or whatever, right? But there's something to being able to like wake up in the morning, go downstairs, get Starbucks, and go straight to a session and not have to walk 3 miles or hop in an Uber and ride for 20 minutes. That just makes it easier for you to actually engage in the act of the conference. All of the parties and all that stuff generally are either in the building itself or close thereby. And so it makes it so that you're in on the gig a little bit. Now I totally understand if you're like, dude, I can't afford that. That's fine. There was a year in my doctoral program where there were 4 of us that stayed in a room together in Boston for ICA. I would not say it was comfortable, but it was affordable. And so sometimes you got to make some sacrifices or bring a sleeping bag or something and sleep on the floor. But I would really suggest that you try to make it work as much as you can. It just makes your life so much easier than having to navigate downtown to find where this other hotel is. And, it's just a pain. So if you can afford it, and if you can get a room, sometimes the block is booked up and all of that. But if you can get a room, the conference hotel is your friend. Those rates are going to be, I mean, it's usually like a third of whatever the standard rate is for that room. So you're never going to be able to rent that room in any other context of your life. And so, those are my kind of tips for conferences. Go have fun, be smart, don't get drunk, and meet people. So there you go. Now you guys can ask questions.
Can I add something really quick to the accommodations? Dr. Keene talked about staying conference room. Sharing the room is a great idea. And another thing I did as a graduate student was staying in international hostel. And in large cities like in Chicago or New Orleans, there are international hostels, HI, Chicago, HI, New Orleans, and they charge you only $30 per night, which is really affordable. And it's dormitory, you share the room with 6 or 8 people, and many of them are actually conference attendees, just like you, graduate students. So it is a good opportunity to collaborate, to have the network with your fellow students as well.
That's a great idea.
Thank you, Dr. Lee and Dr. Keene. So Dr. Key has to be left actually. So I think he has some issues with the NSF. So they called him. So he's on another meeting. So he said sorry to all of you. And now we are going to have some kind of questions. If you have any questions, feel free to ask any questions. I think
Ashraf noted that if you have
okay. Yes.
he noted if you have a carry-on, a backpack, and a tube, sometimes they won't let you. I've never had that problem, and I always carry on. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm nice and I smile and I'm like, hey, I'm just going to do it. If you like do it with confidence and then they leave you alone. But I've never had them push back on that. If you're flying out of Lubbock, they're going to make you check your crap anyway because you're flying on a plane that, is like barely bigger than a Ford Expedition or something. So you're going to be on a tiny plane anyway. But I've never had them flag me for that. That said, don't come bugging me if they make you check your bag.
So I think that could be an issue because recently I was flying to Chicago and they count my poster tube as a carry-on bag with the Southwest. Okay, we have 2 hands raised on Anika and Ashraf. Anika, please unmute and go ahead.
Morning, everyone. So I have a question. So while presenting, I obviously get very nervous. And when there are like comments and question session, and when they ask a question, which is like, I don't know a lot about, or like, I'm stupid, I know, but then I don't know how to answer sometimes, because so when someone knows a lot about the stuff I'm doing and they ask a question which is like more deeper than my knowledge, I usually get like stuck and I don't have any answer or how to answer in a way that doesn't make me so stupid. And it's like, okay, fine. I'll like, is there any tricks or anything that you can say while you don't know, but you don't want to be like, let them know that you don't know so much.
You should let them know you don't know that. Like honesty is always the best policy in this whole thing. And there's always going to be things that you don't know, right? There's always going to be somebody that I tell my kids this all the time. There's always going to be somebody that's smarter, faster, all of that, but there's no reason for them to outwork you. Similarly, there's no reason for them to make you feel bad when you don't know the thing that they do. And so if they ask you some really technical question, you go, I actually don't know the answer to that. Can we talk after this? Because I want to talk through that with you so that I can, so that I can learn what that would be, right? It's a learning opportunity. I've had plenty of those where somebody's clearly trying to needle me about something, and I think nothing pisses them off more than me going, yeah, I actually don't know. It's not that I don't care, it's that I don't know. So can we talk more about it? I would love to learn that. It's always the thing you don't want to do. I've heard grad students go, I actually don't know. You'd have to talk to my advisor because they are the ones that did the analysis. And so, no. One, if I was that advisor, I'd be super ticked because now you throw me under the bus. But two, like, no, you just don't know that specific thing. And so ask them. Be like, I actually don't know the answer to that. Can we talk after this? I would love to learn more about why you're thinking of it in that way. That's completely fair. I don't know what Austin thinks about that, but that's
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's actually a good networking opportunity with that person. And that person is not just being critical about that, he or she is trying to help you, right, to build a better research paper. And if I talk about the nervousness, you usually have your, graduate student sitting in one of those chairs, right? And yeah, look at them, okay? Look at them and talk to them if you're nervous about so many, attendees in the conference room. That's a good way to cheat.
Thank you.
Ashraf, I think you also raised your hand. Yes, go ahead, please.
First of all, thank you so much for important information. That was amazing and so very relevant to our experience. So this NCA would be different for me because I'm on the job market. So definitely I will look for job and connected. But my concern is I already went to a job talk somewhere. So for example, I was thinking when I was seeking for job, trying to networking with other people, what if they see me and say, oh, he's actively looking for other jobs and stuff? Will it give any, because still they're evaluating stuff. And second, what are the tips for me to navigate job market in NCA? And both of you.
Did they offer you a job?
No, not yet.
Okay, then who cares? Right? Like if you see them, you say, hey, nice to see you, like shake hands or high fives or whatever, fist bumps, whatever you do. But if they think less of you for the fact that you're talking to other people, screw that school. You don't want to work there. Because everybody should understand that you're going to interview at multiple places and that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket and all those kinds of cliches. And so, no, I wouldn't worry about it. I would smile and move on. Don't try to be like, I'm going to hide and be, like Mr. Super Spy trying to talk to different people. No, man, you're on the job market. You're trying to find a job and jobs are very digital. You don't have one and then you do, right? It's zeros and ones. And so the odds are in your favor if you throw out more and more and more applications and you talk to more and more and more people. And so don't think it's weird. It is an opportunity for you to talk to those people where you interviewed and to stay front of mind with them and for them, and all that for sure. But no, I don't think you should feel bad if they see you talking to other people. That'd be weird, frankly. So.
Yeah, and people know that you go to NCA for a job.
Yeah.
And it's norm that you have multiple interviews at NCA. So yeah, don't worry about it.
No, I tell people all the time, I interviewed actually at Austin's alma mater. I've interviewed there twice in my career, weirdly. But I interviewed at Michigan State back in 2012, and it was right after I went for the on-campus right after ICA. And that ICA was actually at Disney. It was very weird, or NCA. It was a
I
Disney.
didn't like, yeah.
Yeah, it was very weird. Like the conference hotel was literally a Disney hotel. Like it was very strange. And I literally had like a walk and talk with a couple of the faculty there, just kind of like a soft pre-interview kind of thing at Magic Kingdom. Because we were both at Magic Kingdom and I ran into them and we were just kind of walking and talking about the job and like it was hands down the weirdest experience I've ever had talking to somebody about a job. Is like Mickey is like or like off to the side. You're like, so anyway, would you please hire me for this gig? But like NCA, everybody knows that when you walk into that room with the job fair stuff, that you're trying to put your best foot forward and you're going to talk to multiple people. And if any school is not cool with that, you don't want to work there anyway. Like, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. Like I said, with the one school that picked me off, like I was interviewing them just as much as they were interviewing me. And, that person soured my impression. So.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we have another hand raised. Mir, if you can go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. I have a similar question what you asked in the chat. Like I was wondering, how do you stay energized through the conference, and don't have a burnout? I will apply for PhD program this year, and I was thinking maybe I could go meet some professors and ask some questions. But then I realized from my previous experience, it's really tough, to do ask good questions to specific professors, and there's so much things going on in the conference, so many sessions. So how do you stay focused and utilize the time best of your ability?
Austin, you want to go first?
Yeah, the reason why I said sessions are overrated, well, they're not actually overrated, but people are sometimes too ambitious about, I want to learn all about these, I want to attend as many sessions as possible. And I said that to discourage that idea. So yeah, when you're setting up your schedule, you should have some room for spontaneous interactions and break. At the same time, like Dr. Keene said, sometimes you may want to have some time to attend some completely random, irrelevant sessions as well. So you should open your schedule for that. So don't be too ambitious. Try to prioritize scholars you want to follow, people you want to meet, attend their sessions, then just trying to cover all the sessions possible. So that's the advice I have.
Yeah, and I think from the perspective of fatigue, don't do anything that you wouldn't do here, right? Like some of my friends make fun of me because we'll go to conferences and I'm a big early riser, early asleep guy, and I just kind of always have been. And so like we'll go to stuff and I'm like, all right, 9:30, I'm out. See y'all later. I'm going to go to bed. And they all kind of make fun of me, and I'm like, I don't want to be a zombie the next day, right? And so, if I wake up every morning and I go work out and I go drink coffee or whatever, that's what I want to do at conferences too, right? Like I think whatever rhythms you have here that work for you, you should do whenever you're in another city. It's just like you would on vacation. And so like one of my best friends, Brandon, he's not in academia anymore, but we would always room together for years, going all the way back to that first one in Montreal. Brandon's a big time runner. And so he would get up every morning and go run 5 miles, whether we were in Puerto Rico or Prague or Chicago or wherever, just because it was what he did during his normal life in Lincoln, because he worked at the University of Nebraska. And so yeah, I think you should just do that. I think if you wouldn't stay up until 3 a.m. drinking beers with buddies, don't do it at ICA. Don't behave in a way that would be out of the norm for you, because yeah, you do want to be with it and be able to cognitively engage and answer. The worst thing would be somebody asks you a really good question and you're so hungover or so tired that you just can't function. That's not good. I also don't think you have to go for the whole conference. I'm just gonna be real. I think 1 day is not enough. I think 2 days might be right. I think staying there for 5 days that's just a lot of money. And so you don't have to be there every minute of the conference. Make some choices and be cool with the choices you make. So
yeah, if you add one more thing, I think New Orleans is a perfect location for conference because, well, it's pretty warm outside, so you can go explore the town, and there are lots of places you want to explore, like mother's restaurant. You have to go to mother's restaurant and have some bread pudding, and you have to try the French, donut, beignet, and they're all, like within walking distances. So you have to give yourself some break and explore the town and, check out the French Quarter, right? And then, yeah, have some, re-energized.
Sure, thank you. I think we have Mir once again raised his hand. I think this is going to be our last questions. Mir, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. That was a great advice. The last question I have is about the PhD that I'm asking. Like, as we have central admission, so is it a good idea to reach out individual professors and asking about that, because they're not going to take decisions all alone? So, is it a good idea?
Yes. Even here, where we have a committee that, frankly, for the last 12 years that I've been here, I've never been on that committee until this year. But I've had doctoral students going all the way back to 2014. And like, if you want to work with someone, one, you should reach out to them and make sure they're not a psychopath and that you actually like gel, because you're going to be spending a ton of time with them and working with them. But then two, like, just because they aren't the ones saying yes or no doesn't mean that they can't email. Like, whenever a student reaches out to me and I really want them, the order of operations is very set for me. I interact with them. If I like them and I think that they would fit with my lab and my culture, then I immediately forward them on to COI and say, hey, this person is interesting to me. Can we talk? Right? And so you should absolutely be doing that, because then in your letter of application, your personal statement for these different grad programs, you should be mentioning exactly who you want to go work for. You get a master's degree from a school, you get a PhD from a person, right? Like, your PhD advisor is going to inform so much of your worldview and how you view research and the type of work you do and what you know about that stuff. You need to make sure that they are somebody that you trust, that you want to work with, that you can get along with, at least, well enough to survive the 3 or 4 years, right? And that they know who the hell you are. Because I've had students that apply to our program before that I had never met them, never even heard their name, and they put in their letter that they really want to work with me because they want to do psychophys, and I don't know this guy from Adam. So why am I gonna, COI calls me and says, hey, you want to take this student? I'm like, I don't know who the heck that is, right? Versus if that student's reached out and we've had a few conversations and we've emailed, I'm going, yeah, bring them. I love it, right? And so, yes, you should absolutely go meet with those people and talk to them. Yes. Can't say yes enough times. Yes, you should go do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I totally agree with that. And well, when I was serving at the search committee or graduate committee, we often have a meeting after NCA and discuss, the applicants and ask the committee members, hey, did you have a chance to talk to this person? So we actually go over the list and make sure that at least one person has a interaction with those applicants.
Yeah, and sometimes people that are from that institution, you didn't interact with them from the position of being a doctoral applicant. They just happened to be around you. And so if they found you noxious or annoying, or, that you're being a jerk, they're going to say, yeah, actually, like, I saw that guy and he was being a massive jerk to the front desk receptionist at the hotel. And like, we don't want that kind of person here. And so like, this is just a good lesson in life of like, just be nice to everybody. There's no harm in that. But also too, like, those conversations are very real. And like, we've had people here that applied here that were great on paper. And then they came out for the PhD visit and they were nice to all the faculty and they were absolute monsters to the staff. And we said, no, go away. We don't want you. And you were only nice to the people that you thought would give you stuff. So we're absolutely not going to take you here. And so, just be aware. And again, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. Yes, you want to go get a PhD from school XYZ. And that's great. More power to you. However, also, like, is that place going to have a culture that you want to be a part of? Do the graduate students actually get along and like each other? You can tell pretty fast at a party whether or not the grad students actually like each other, right? Are they hanging around talking, or are they all just kind of like off to the side, And so you should read the room for that kind of stuff. It's important.
Thank you, Dr. Keene and Dr. Lee. I think that was a very productive sessions. And thank you, Mary from COMC GSS, for supporting us for the outreach and other promotional activities. And Dr. Key is here. Dr. Key, why don't you go with a quick 30 seconds talk?
Sure. Just thank you, everyone, for showing up, and thank you, Dr. Lee, Dr. Keene, for a wonderful talk. I do apologize. I have a drop off suddenly because I've been
So
having.
mad.
I know it was a bit at the middle of Assistant Dean Justin Keene's presentation.
Interim, so it's totally fine. Yeah.
Okay. If you like to hear this, is that NSF tech support call me because I've been having trouble with NSF login for the longest time.
Oh man.
And then they say, we need you to share your screen. What is your problem? So I was like, oh, darn it. I have to drop off. And so I missed this. But I can tell from what I've heard and also the last portion of this discussion that this is a very, very helpful and insightful a discussion for the grad students. I was finding myself nodding the whole time that I was listening to the presentation so far. And I hope that this has been tremendously helpful for everyone on the call for the upcoming NCA conference and many, many more conferences to come. And the last thing to put in the plug is please join GSS and also consider joining IDL, Innovation Diffusion Lab. We're a group of faculty and students interested in studying how new innovations, new practices, new behaviors, new ideas spread in different social systems. And I'd love to have you join our meetings in the future. So with that, it's a wrap. Thank you so much.
And
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Cheers.
That's it. Sure.